And I don't really know what this is, but it seems like in a zombie apocalypse, for some reason, there's always an excessive amount of paper scattered everywhere in the
Yeah,
streets.
yeah,
What the hell
yeah,
is that? Like Resident Evil is that? Like, why is there so much paper?
Paper.
yeah. Everybody was mid filing something when it all went down. Hello, welcome to Survivor's Ed: How to Not Die First in a Horror Movie. I'm Chris.
I'm Tawny.
Miles.
We are two blacks and a Mexican, and we like to things that go bump in the night.
Hell no.
Don't edit this
I
out.
don't even know why that was so funny. But
It's staying. This is staying in. Every bit of this.
He stopped believing in himself for a second, and then I was like, "What's he gonna say?"
It's like I was looking into somebody's soul right now. This is Survivor's Ed. This is a horror movie podcast where we talk about the scary movies we love, but as black and brown people, we also talk about how our people did in those movies. And spoiler alert, often they do not do well. So we think we sort of walk ourselves through the movie, revisit it, talk about how our people did, and then we decide on one rule for survival. And this week we are talking about a really big entry in the zombie apocalypse genre, which we haven't really covered yet, Dawn of the Dead. And we are doing the 2004 remake by Zack Snyder, written by James Gunn, and based on the original by George Romero. I know it's probably blasphemy that we're not doing a Romero movie for our first zombie movie, but we wanted to do Dawn of the Dead, so deal with it. This movie is like a high octane take on the zombie apocalypse genre. The zombies run; they run real fast. The people go to a mall, hold up in there, and spend most of the movie there. And the whole, goal is what the goal is in every zombie apocalypse movie: survive. And a lot of people don't. So I think that's kind of the layout. Y'all want to talk about what's the situation in Dawn of the Dead?
Oh man. So I really like, and I know that the original, and again, not to be blasphemous, like the original Dawn of the Dead was a criticism of consumer culture, and Snyder sort of steps away from that, I think, wisely. And I love the idea of a zombie movie set in a mall, just because it's sort of like there's like a fantasy. If you grew up going to malls, like what would I do if I was the only one here and there's nobody around to stop me? And it's to kind of get to see them live all that out, even though it's like the worst possible circumstances. But yeah, but what I want to say is this. This is the number one thing I wanted to talk about. I love Sarah Polley in this movie. Like, to me, like she's my height. She's like 5'2", and every scene that they show her in where she's standing with everybody else, she looks like a little midget person. She's so
Yeah, I
she's
noticed
teeny.
that.
That's how tall I am.
I never noticed that. I never noticed that until this watching, like
She's
this
so
viewing. I
little.
was like, damn, she's short as hell.
She's
I
so
never
little,
noticed
she's
it.
tiny, and I'm like that, and I forget that I'm small sometimes. Like just because it's not something that I have to like. Obviously, yes, like in my day, I can't reach the top shelf or whatever. I got to get the step stool, but like you sort of like it's really cool to see a short girl like being just so badass in that cold open where and this is like one of the things like if you oh my god like I can't I don't know if I can think of a better cold open. It's brilliant. It like you go from the production look logo and it's blended into the movie and it works in some weird way. And you meet Anna, and she's like this tired ass nurse. Because like, is there anybody who's tougher than a nurse? Like, I don't even know. Like, and she's this teeny little girl, this woman. Sorry, not girl. Like this teeny little woman. She just wants to go home. We get this whole peaceful like setup, and we know it's coming. And then when it comes, she's smeared in blood. She's wearing her pajamas. Like she doesn't even have shoes or socks on, and she's just tough as hell. And I love her, and she continues. And I would say if I had to choose one central protagonist, or say like one character is the central protagonist of the whole movie, it's her, and I think that's awesome, and I love it as a short woman. She's badass.
You do have a reason to live.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say I would echo all of that. Like I really like that opening scene. Like it's I mean it if you're not really knowing what you're getting into, like they really kick it off pretty early, like with with the little girl, like. And I just I always dig that when she gets outside and she's just driving around. It's just so chaotic, like. And I mean, yeah, like this is what I imagine, like if everybody just starts doing this, like starts turning into zombies, like yeah, this is what it's like. Like she does some things that I'm like, what are you doing right now, man? Like I and maybe because like we talked about it like before, where in zombie movies, like everybody sort of like acts like they have no reference, like frame of reference for like zombies. So it's like, what's wrong? It's like half of your face is missing. You walk into it. I'm not like sitting there figuring out like what's wrong with you. Like I'm just like, oh, that's a zombie. Like
The little
I,
girl, right? They're like,
I
"Oh
could be
shit, call it at 911," and I'm like, "Get away from her!"
yeah, I could be wrong. I can be wrong later, and I'm all right with admitting when I was incorrect about something. But in the moment, that's a zombie. That's a zombie right there. That's a zombie girl right there. So yeah, I'm gonna just avoid that. Get away from her. Close the door. You know what I'm saying? Like, but yeah, that opening scene is dope. Like, this one, I don't know. It's just like a fun like zombie movie. Like, it's I don't know if this was. Well, no, this is definitely not the first. I was gonna say this is the first one where they're running, but it's not.
No, and 28 Days Later had come
28
out.
Days Later, yeah,
Yeah, and that was like what I kept encountering was like that those two movies were sort of paired together as
yeah,
the advent of the fast zombie that a lot of people hate, but I actually love because it's terrifying.
It
yeah. It's
is.
even more like it's even more terrifying to know that something that like it's like a wild animal at that point
Hmm.
where like
Like
it's
rabid, like a
yeah,
rabid.
like I
Hmm.
mean that makes it even more because these are still people. Like most of the time zombies have like this strength. They're not like they don't seem to be that strong. Like they're very like just out of it and like almost high. Like they like crackheads basically. And well, no, I ain't gonna say that. Crackheads supposed to be strong. Like so, I don't know. Like they ain't even like crackheads. Like they like
Sidebar about
they're like
crackheads.
yeah, they're like old people. They're like really old, like
Supposed to be
feeble,
strong.
decrepit. Like
I want to see how many populations you can manage to offend in your assessment. Keep going, sir.
I got a few more. I got a few more.
No, they're
But
not
nah,
like
like
crackheads. They're like really, really old people.
I mean, because they can't like really get around super fast. Then it's like, all right, well, I'm pretty sure I could like get away from like an 80-year-old. Like, like I'll just run around them. Like, you can't catch me. But
But well, yeah, yeah.
I mean, for the most case, like they like, but I've always dug that. I always like just the once they make it to the mall, like it really just starts to pop off, like it, and then I always love the ending of this movie. I always the like that end credit, like I always thought that was like so fire, like that like you think that everything is great, and if you cut the movie off right there, like that's your bad because there was more.
Or
Like
maybe not your bad if you can't handle dark endings.
yeah. I will say this one last thing that's interesting to me about just zombie films in general, and I don't really know what this is, but it seems like in a zombie apocalypse, for some reason, there's always an excessive amount of paper scattered everywhere in the
Yeah,
streets.
yeah,
What the hell
yeah,
is that? Like Resident Evil is that like why is there so much paper?
Paper.
yeah, yeah. Everybody was mid filing something when it all went down.
Don't you need that for kindling or something? Like, or
It's like
I mean,
every watch any zombie movie and there's like mad just resume paper and shit and print paper all in the streets. Like, why is there so much paper? Like, what is
or
like
or Tawny, maybe they're like teachers. Maybe everybody's teachers, and those are assignments.
I might do that. I may be like, fuck it.
it's
Just
just
throw it.
it's just like every zombie movie looks like the last day of school when everybody's like throwing all their books out and
I'm gonna be honest. That's what I do at the end of the year when I'm cleaning out my classroom. Fuck this, fuck that. Don't have to look at that again.
that's
Just
what I'm
throw it.
saying. Like the last day of school is always like it's always just papers everywhere because everybody's just throwing out books and notebooks and everything that they don't need. Like that's what zombie apocalypse looks like. Is the last day of school happened everywhere and everybody just threw all this shit. Like what? I'm looking at it, I'm like, why is there always so much paper? Like what is that? I don't understand that.
I mean, gotta have that paper, I guess. uh, so okay, well, I really, really like this movie. I don't think this might be one of the first ones we've ever done where I'm probably the least um like into the, I guess, enthused about the movie in question. I like this movie, but like upon rewatch, I think there's just things about it that like I'm like, yeah, I mean it's probably not my favorite zombie movie, but I have a weird affinity for the shambling zombie. I think it's because neither version of the zombie scares me really, because to me the running zombies are like, I don't know if I even it's like there's something about it that just makes me think of like a regular, like a cannibal or like a regular person that's just crazy, which is scary, but like it doesn't put me in the mode of like that's a zombie, I guess. I don't know.
Or like
Um,
creepy. No, it's not
Nah,
creepy.
the
I'm actually with
shambling zombie to me
you.
is
I'm
like
with you.
that's the idea of a dead body being propelled by some, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's something really like unsettling about it to me, even
Mhm.
if it's less of
Yeah.
an actual threat. And so like and what you just said, Miles, is what was said in the original Night of the Living Dead was like the woman looking out the window. She's like, they're so slow. Like we could just walk right past them, uh and so it's like the fact that the characters acknowledge that in movie and then still somehow get killed.
No,
Uh
Yeah.
and a lot of it has to do with the underestimation and all that. But
mhm.
so I do want to just shout out to the shamblers out there.
I mean, I'm actually with you on that though,
Yeah.
just for the fact that it seems more like a zombie, like an undead, thing,
Yeah.
like something that
It's
reanimate.
more unnerving. Like it's
Yes.
more unnerving.
Yeah.
It
You're just
it
like,
also
ugh,
it also
like
kind of makes more sense that something like a reanimated corpse is not is not as fully functional as a regular human being. It still
Yeah.
has some
Yeah.
of the same traits of a regular human, but it can't do all the same physical actions that a normal human would. So it running fast almost kind of doesn't make sense.
yeah.
Like it makes more sense, at least in my mind, just the logic. It makes more sense that it can't move fluidly like a human would move, which like makes some distinction between it being a rabid person and like, a dead person. Like
Yeah.
the fact, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think about that like when I remember when Walking Dead started and it's like how is something going to move fast with no muscle? Like that's not physically possible, but I want to say this about not to go too much into 28 Days Later,
I
which
love 28 Days Later.
is excellent. But like what I
Yeah.
loved there was that they turned it into basically rabies. Like it was basically
Mhm.
human rabies. It wasn't that
Mhm.
Yeah.
the corpse
They
like
weren't
died and
dead.
reanimated. Yeah, they
No.
just got this gross disease that turned them into these like rabid creatures. And I think that's sort of what the aesthetic feel of this movie's zombies are. But we do have like you can't be decomposed with no muscle and also running
Be
fast. So
running
yes,
like
that
really
Exactly.
running, like faster than
Yeah.
I can probably run. But
Well, these
But
zombies
maybe you
too,
can.
like
I don't know. Like I'm like I've never seen a rabid animal. I know that people to come back to the crackhead situation. Like there are people who don't feel pain because they're compromised in some way, and maybe they're running like a chicken with its head cut off. Like maybe there is some sort of a way to explain that as like this is just like whatever it is that's powering this, and it's never explained in the movie in any sort of substantial way, which actually I think is good. Like because I think we don't need to know an explanation. Um, whatever it is enough for these things to get up and fucking just haul and eat people.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah.
these ones too, like, are kind of like that first season of like The Walking Dead, where they hadn't like established. Well, they hadn't established like a set of rules for like how it was that Frank Darabont's like vision of the zombies, where they're like
Oh
picking
yeah.
up stuff, and like
Mhm.
the one in this one like picks up that tank or whatever, or that gas tank or whatever.
Oh
And
yeah.
these zombies for whatever reason seem just deliberately hell bent on catching this group of people for some reason. Like, it
You got
almost
like
seems
a
like they have like
weird
they've
grudge.
organized. Yeah, it almost seems like they've organized and made like a deliberate decision to like go after them and nothing else. Cause it's like, why don't y'all go somewhere else? Why are y'all like so hell bent on like these
That's it.
specific
That
units?
fits in with Romero's like, and as we see unfold in Land of the Dead, right? Which was, I think that was his last. Was that his last movie? The one
There's a
with
couple other ones, but it's the last one that's part of like
the of the dead. The
yeah, he's
like the zombies sort of become sentient. Like, right? They keep, like, that's the point of that, is that there is still something about them that, like, they're returning to their sort of human, like the things that they're used to as people.
yeah,
So I
because in
think
that
that,
one they
yeah.
actually choose not to eat some of the humans at the end. They
Mhm.
just like go off.
And
Yeah, and
I
there's like a civil rights zombie movement, which I
yeah.
get behind
And there
that.
is, I guess there is something troubling or unsettling too. Like, I like that line in there where they're like, "Why are they all coming here?" And they're just saying like, maybe just some past memories or whatever. Like, maybe they're coming for us. Like, I dig that line because it's like it it like that thing right there makes you think that they should have been slower. Like,
Mhm.
because it's like there is some like a little bit of the humanity left in
Mhm.
them, but not quite enough for them to make the decision to not do what they're doing. Like, so they're not fully functional as humans. So like you shouldn't be running. Like, you should just like be kind of like this, like in like The Walking Dead, where like that first season where the Morgan's wife is like, I think it's the wife where she's like trying to open the door
Mhm.
like of their
Mhm.
house. And that's such a creepy ass like,
Yeah.
moment, because it's like there's something there that's still, some sort of information that has like retained in their mind. Like, I remember
Some sort
this.
of neural pattern, like some sort of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
nerves that are still firing in the same way. And it's
Yeah, that's
sad.
that's
It
creepy
makes
and sad and everything, like, at the same time, yeah.
Mhm. No, I that's so I mean, and this movie, what I think it does really well though is like it builds a lot of really good tense set pieces, and like I found myself it's like your heart starts beating fast and all that stuff. It happened in this one a few times because you just um as a director, Zack Snyder's really good at that. He's good at like set pieces and kind of creating
He's very stylish.
yes,
You
he's
know,
good at
you
and the
cannot take that away
action.
from him.
No, the action set pieces are really well constructed. You kind of it's similar to what we talked about with Deep Blue Sea with the LL Cool J in the oven and all that stuff, where like the scenes are laid out in a way where like where people are, what's going on, and like I that sounds like a really elementary thing, is like, oh, where everyone is, but like I honestly, like, I love Christopher Nolan, he's one of my favorite directors. Dude's action scenes are sometimes, like, sloppy because like,
Mm,
you're like, "Where's Batman at? Wait, who's that over there?" Like, that dude just fell on his own, and, like, and he's a great director all otherwise, right? Zack Snyder's kinda the opposite, like, he's not really great in terms of, like,
you know what I
telling a
read?
story,
Yeah, I read
but
that
he's
story. Like, he's not good at the storytelling, but he's so talented and stylish in the
the
way he puts.
visuals and
Yeah.
the construction of, you can tell where his heart's at, you know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I'm not even that critical of him for that very reason. It's like, I would never say like, "Oh, Zack Snyder doesn't deserve to be where." No, he does, because he is a good director. He's just not a he's not a great storyteller. He's kind of like Lucas in a way.
Yeah.
It's like he knows how to create, innovate, and do cool things and make you amazed and make your jaw drop. And he does that a lot in this movie. And the fact that James Gunn wrote it, to me, that's a good mix, because like James Gunn's a really good writer, in my opinion. Like, he's a good screenwriter, and actually, he might be a better screenwriter than director, in my opinion too. But there's little clever moments in this. There's little like things in it that just remind me that, like, oh yeah, like this was a good combo, these two,
Yeah,
to
it
take
is.
Romero's material and put their own spin on it.
Yeah. I agree. Like I kind of have the same sentiment, like just about like Zach. Like I just don't think he's like a really, great storyteller, but like you said, he's stylish. Like he's like I mean, if I could compare it to like rap, like he's like the artist that's not really that lyrical, but like he's got like a lot of, you know, he's got good flows. Like he's
Flair,
got like,
yeah,
yeah,
he's like
he's got the flair.
ludicrous.
Like yeah, he's got like the swag, like the intangible thing that's like not like, "Oh, okay, yeah." And he's really good at that. Like that novelty works for him. If you're expecting like other things from him though, that I don't think that that's what it is. He's great in this setting. Like this type of movie like this is perfect for like Zack Snyder. Like
This movie blew my hair, like you're looking at my hair. I don't have a lot of it, but this movie blew my hair back. Like the first time I saw it, like I truly was like, wow. And to this day, I would probably say it's my favorite zombie movie. And I know people are always like, no, but Night of the Living Dead. And there's just something about, oh my God, my animals are fighting with each other. Sorry, but there's just something about the fun and the creativity and the new lens on ground that's already been covered. And it's actually almost like, like I think if he had tried to hit the same thematic notes that Romero did in the original, in terms of like criticizing consumer culture, I think this would have failed. Like I think he had his fun with it, and he
Yeah,
gave us all these great, like you said, like these great set pieces, and Gunn comes in with this, like, not in any like elaborate depth, but like we get to see these characters develop, and we get like I care like, and I've already talked about how much I love Sarah Pauly, but like I Michael and even like all the people that come in later, like what's his face, Max Headroom. Why do I always blank out on his name?
oh, Matt
Matt Frewer,
Frewer,
you know,
yeah.
and it just and the and I told you guys I have this weird crush on CJ, like his character arc of being the fucking biggest douche in the whole place, and then like as Miles pointed out, probably needlessly sacrificing himself. But we get these little, and it's not because it's an ensemble. You don't get like tons and tons of development, but it's there, and I love characters. Like I can't like to me. If I had to pick one element of a story that's the most important, it's character.
For
And
sure.
this movie like delivers on character, and the leads are strong, and the actors are all good. Like there's not
yeah, I don't
one
think
bad
there's
actor in
anybody.
it.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
think there's anybody in here like I think they're all like they all seem to be having a great time doing this. Like I don't think there's anybody like really phoning it in. Like everybody seems even the characters that I hate are like committed to the
Buddha,
like
Melania
yeah, like
Trump.
Mekhi Phifer's character. Like I hate his character, but he's completely committed to like that role like of what he's playing. Like and I mean there's quite a few other ones that I'm like I don't like what's the with the girl that with the that
the
went after the
dog.
dog.
Oh,
Yeah,
and
Uh,
Nicole.
yeah.
Nicole, like, I don't like her. Like, you know what? Yeah, oh, yo, here's my other problem with her. Not even the fact that she went after the dog was stupid. Like, that was dumb. My like worst like maybe issue with her is like they decide like that they're gonna leave the mall or whatever. And they have that montage scene of like everybody like welding steel, reinforcing these buses to, like, really, like, make it safe so that they could leave and, like, making this, like, combat, like, convoy out of these, like, makeshift bus like, it's really like, what they did was, like, really, "Yo, this is pretty dope." Like, out of, like, everybody's using their skills to, like, come together and make something that's a caravan that's safe for them to leave. And then they show a scene of her, like, spray painting teeth on the front of the thing, like, we don't need that. We don't need that. Everybody's creating something right. Everybody's contributing something that's like functional to this. Like, dude's like, man, I got these slights on the side. We'll use the chainsaw and kill him through this thing. We'll have this thing right here. This will lock it. I'm like, yes, exactly. And then there's a
Yeah.
shot of her spray painting teeth on the front. Like, yo, sit down. We don't need that. Like, that is not important to us getting out of here
No way
and making it through
whatsoever.
this crowd at all. Like,
So here's the thing.
complete waste.
But here's the thing, like I yeah, Nicole's the worst. But I so here's what's interesting to me, like her character and Mekhi Phifer's character, those are both examples of I can imagine. I would love to read James Gunn's original script, because to me that is one area where you can kind of see a potential disconnect between director and writer, because on paper, like, that's such a James Gunn thing to have like one situation where there's a family basically, and the father is hiding the bite of the mother and obsessed with this baby, and there being a zombie baby, period. That's all James Gunn. To like, I can see that, right? Like that's straight out of his brain. And it's actually an interesting character element to sort of introduce this character who, when we first meet her, is losing the last of her whole family, and then her growing attached to this dog and kind of like being determined not to lose anything else and all that. Like, on paper, you could read that maybe in a book or in the screenplay and be like, wow, she's like, I get it. Yeah, like, I hurt for her a little bit, and yeah, that was stupid, but like, as directed by Zack Snyder, we were more focused on the action in those moments, and in the action element of those moments, it just looks like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Like, you know, and you don't even remember the other stuff, because you're just like, what are you doing? You're ruining everything, you know, because he does such a good job of setting it up, the action part of it, with the welding and with like, he's thinking about, let's make this epic, and he's setting all that up, and all the character stuff around why she's making the decision she's making, who she is. You kind of drifts to and then you're just looking at this character like, what an idiot, like, which is true. And the teeth thing is just like, it's like, oh, that's a cute character thing, remember, because she spray paints. But it was like
an artist, or she draws.
Yeah, she did it earlier in the movie. It shows her doing it in the hallways and stuff. Like, she's like a artist or something. But
I completely missed that. Like, I didn't even like her character is so insignificant, like, to me, that I didn't even like notice that. Like,
Miles is just so angry.
I mean, because like, okay, fine, you paint, cool. That's like a cool character. That's part of your character. We don't need that shit right now.
Right.
Like, that's not like important right now. That's not an important factor of us getting out.
Grab that
like,
wrench. Hand me that wrench. How about that?
And if you can't be useful in the way, maybe you don't know how to weld and all that other stuff. Okay, cool. Like, how about you assist somebody else with something else other than paint? Okay, like, we don't, like, that's not something that's
like
necessary.
You have a character with aerosol cans, like, grab a lighter and use that as a weapon. Like, that
I would have been, even though like that, maybe that wouldn't have been like the most useful thing. Like, I would have been better off. I would have been more satisfied if they showed her like using a can, like, to create a torch. Like, okay, maybe, or something. Like, all right, spray paint the teeth on there. Nah.
or at least be the hoe of the group, like the other girl.
I actually got no issues with her. Like, I don't even have any problems with her.
She's the hoe. We all need
committed to that. Yeah, you need that. Listen, that's something that you do need, though. Like, you sitting out here, you sitting up here painting like spray paint on here. Like, at least when we get out of here, it's like, well, no, I mean, at least we got, like, I got somebody that I can, you know what I'm saying, rely on,
procreate, repopulate the earth with.
You know who the saddest character in this whole movie is? Fucking Andy. Like, Andy breaks my heart every single time. Here's what I keep thinking. right? Like the whole like the reason they sacrifice, or one of the things they send Chips over to do is just bring him a sandwich or some shit.
It wasn't that far, or they didn't have anything that they could like fly over there. I don't know if they had like drone type stuff then at that time. Like I don't know, but I mean,
I'm telling
still,
you,
like,
those water balloon launch.
y'all are being unfair.
well, my other issue that I was telling you guys is like these people' ability to open and close doors quickly is terrible. Like whenever there's like zombies coming, they're like sitting there looking at something, I don't know, and then they're closing the door right when the zombie is like halfway through the door. Like
They
what
like take 75 years to move through the door. Like
Well, you
it's
gotta
just
yeah.
get that. You gotta get that last shot of Ving Rhames cocking his shotgun. Like, how many times did we see his shotgun?
It's like excessively cocked like a bunch of times.
It was like, gotta get that, and you gotta see the shell hit the ground next to his boot.
Even Andy, like when the dog comes and like he opens the door and like the dog comes in, there's like a good like 8 seconds where he just leaves the thing up, like, oh man, they got in. Like, what are you doing,
really,
man?
you're not gonna close that thing all the way? Like seriously?
Well,
Like that's
here's
how
what's
they
weird.
did it.
What was weird to me too about that is like it was only like 2 zombies got in, and you heard him shoot, and it was just like, wait, I thought he was really
He's
good.
supposed to be like a great shot. Yeah. Like what happened there? Like
He's
he was supposed
only
to be
good at
like,
long range, apparently.
yeah. I thought that was ridiculous. Like just the fact that they were able to get in. And then like the stupider part was like he understands like the zombies, right? Like he understands. Like I think
What
they're
they are.
communicating with them and what they are. He gets bit. He's like, "Oh man, these guys bite so hard, man. Well, I'll see you guys a little bit later." Like, no, you won't. We won't see you later,
You're
motherfucker. Like,
dying, buddy.
like,
So
like,
sad though.
what are
That
you
real
talking
So
about?
actually that death hurts. Like that's one that actually where I'm like, oh man, like I don't care when Mekhi Phifer dies. Like he's
Nah,
such an
I
asshole.
didn't care
His
about that.
wife,
Yeah,
don't care about that zombie baby. Like everything's gross in that whole scene. I felt bad for the old lady, but like when Andy died, and it was like I think I was reading like it's like if for at the beginning of the movie, Ving Rhames is like obsessed with getting to his brother, right? And
yeah.
so like he takes all of that and he invests in this like relationship with this dude, like the
He even calls him brother. He like
brother.
refers to him
Yep.
as
mhm.
brother like multiple times.
That broke my heart. Like that made me fucking sad.
No, that was sad. And
Yeah,
Mhm.
I actually appreciate that like relationship more than anything like is going on. I don't know what the hell is going on with Mekhi Phifer, but you could cut that whole part out and I would be fine. Like with
Yeah.
well, let's use that as an opportunity to pivot to our second segment since we're starting to get into it anyway. Of you good, homie? And basically, we're checking in on our people of color in the movie. We have a few, notably Ving Rhames' character. What's his name?
Kenneth.
Kenneth. So we have Kenneth, who uh, played by Ving Rhames, and then we have Mekhi Phifer's
Andre.
Andre. I think we should start with him, and then we'll pivot back to Kenneth. So Andre,
What I had texted you guys like yesterday was like, man, this guy sucks so hard. Like him and his wife. Like there's
yeah.
he just
They're
sucks.
terrible. They're terrible. And not their the performance that they're giving, just like the
No.
way their characters are written are
Yeah.
just horrible.
Absolutely. No, the acting's
Yeah,
great. And you like
yeah.
really from the beginning you meet them and he's like surly and like doesn't trust other people and he has his own shit in his head that he needs to see to completion. And I think that's the key right there, right? Like he does the thing that probably a lot of us would do. Don't tell anybody about the bite. You know, like it's a that's like an antisocial response to something, right? Like I'm going to endanger the group because I have my own priorities.
And that's interesting too, like, because I actually think more people would actually, if there was like a zombie apocalypse, I think more people would actually react that way. Like just knowing Americans and like if they got bit, like I am not going to selflessly be like, hey y'all, I'm bit. I don't got much time left. I'm gonna sit here because I believe that I'm gonna be okay. Like I believe that I'm gonna be the one person that's immune to maybe I'm immune, like, just like she's
Yeah. Yeah.
doing what I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of people would do, which is be like, "Well, yeah, nah, I'm not gonna die." Like, "Yeah, you probably are." Like, and, like, for that, like, it makes his character annoying, and his wife, she clearly dies and turns into a zombie, and his attachment to, like, holding on to that is so strange to me, like, it's just a weird ass scene, like,
Well, that
she's
scene in the
dead.
bathroom, like, with him and Ving Rhames, right? What does he tell him? Like, "I'm gonna give this baby everything I never had, and, like, this is my mission in the world," and I'm like, like, you might have to reroute some of that, given the current circumstances, sir. And I'm sorry that you made mistakes in your life. And you know what's interesting? And I was gonna ask you guys, like, there's this reference to like him being a thief, right? Like Ving Rhames makes some comment about him being a thief, and I'm like, is that ever like it must be part of exposition somewhere? But to me, it's not ever obvious that
I
he's
mean,
the yeah.
he talks about, like, things that he regrets, like, his past, like, where he's made mistakes, basically.
But it's
I don't know if it's
after
explicitly.
Ving Rhames says that. Like Ving Rhames, I think Ving Rhames profiles him. I think that's the what's
Yeah,
happening.
he
Yeah,
probably has,
probably.
like, I know what type of dude you are." He's a police officer, so he's probably like, "I know what type of dude you are." And, yeah, I don't think yeah, I think you're right, like, after that is where he kind of goes into more detail because they don't explicitly say, like, "This guy's a criminal," or whatever, like, prior to that
You
exchange,
just
so
see his mugshot like laying on the ground.
right, laying on the ground.
Oh, thanks, Zach. No, so like, but
And his random Russian wife that
right. Well, that's
what?
so that's to me what's the
What is
weirdest
this
thing.
story?
Their dynamic. That's the weird. Like, it's not really. So obviously, like I'm totally all for multicultural interracial relationships, but like uh I think it just felt weird because like his character is far more fleshed out than hers. She's like the wife, and it just felt like I'm imagining if the family makeup was a little bit different and there was a little bit more character, a little more build up in their relationship, then maybe we would feel something when that scene happens. But it's also the most over the top scene in the
It
whole
truly is.
movie. It's very over the top. Like we like so my wife was in a meeting or something and she came in like during the movie. She's seen it before, but uh she just like started laughing when him and the old lady were shooting each other.
It's such a
because
ridiculous scene,
because
like,
she was just like I like how they're just so determined to keep shooting each other because like it went like they were hitting each other, but nobody was falling, and they just kept shooting each other like 3 or 4 times, and that on top of then immediately following that up with the zombie baby, uh, there's just so many aspects of that scene that felt like a different movie to me than the rest of the movie. Like you take that scene out, like, and that's the scene I always. That's what's sad is that's the scene I always remember when I think of Dawn of the Dead, 2004,
the
is
zombie
the
baby.
weird Mekhi Phifer zombie baby hold up in
It's
the
Yeah.
nursery scene.
creepy. It's really like I and okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
like don't
definitely strange, yeah.
it's a perversion, right? Like the idea of it's a perversion of nature, and it's most clear when it's a baby, right? Like a baby is supposed to be life. It's supposed to be renewal and life, and as a baby comes out and it's the opposite of that, it's disgusting. Like it's supposed to make you go like, "Oh, that's fucked up." You know, and I think that like that's the point of that whole scene.
Yeah, that one that's a scene that I could, like, do without. I mean, even the old lady, I just, like, her, like, her decisions, like, kinda don't even make sense, like, at that moment, it's like, I would just walk out, like, because I would
Yeah.
just go tell the rest
Just
of the
go tell
group.
someone.
Yeah, she's tied up,
Hey,
like, to the yeah, she's, like,
shit going on.
yeah,
Yeah.
because she's, like, strapped into the bed or whatever, like, into that restraint he's got her restrained, and he's in there, and he's pointing a gun at me, I'm definitely like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and let you have this, bro.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna walk out and I'm gonna go inform the rest of the group, hey, listen, like they did with everything else. Like, why would she take
I
that upon
always feel
herself to try to handle that situation?
that happens in a lot of movies where I'm like, you guys are really bad at lying to people who might kill you. Like, just fucking lie your head off. Like, oh God, congratulations. All right, just and then walk backwards out of the store. Like, why is that nobody like that? I feel like that would be like, oh shit, I gotta get out of here.
I gotta
Like,
get out of here, yeah.
why is that not anybody else's impulse in these movies?
Because he's
Mhm.
clearly like unstable at that point
Yeah.
where he's just become so obsessed with the idea of like caring for this child that he's just blind to, what's the obvious. Where I'm like, all right, you know what? This is not somebody I'm gonna reason with. I'm just gonna walk out and like,
Which
what are you
again,
doing? Like,
maybe
you have a shootout with him? Like, what? Like,
maybe there's a mismatch here.
that's
Shootout.
so random. Like, a 80-year-old woman and Mekhi Phifer have a shootout in this movie. I
Maybe
bet you don't see that coming, like,
Right.
at
in line
all.
in line with the mismatch of like us like not really feeling too much empathy for Nicole, like I feel like maybe this is a mismatch where like that I feel like we maybe could have like understood Mekhi Phifer's obsession with bringing a baby into the world and caring for it and nurturing it and making everything good for it, but it's just not it doesn't flesh out. And mostly I'm just like this motherfucker fucked everything up. Like that's mostly how I feel about him.
Now you imagine again on paper you see like, oh, this father, and he's made all these mistakes. He's trying to make up for it, and it's like I could see James Gunn sitting down and being like, in like the most sort of disturbing and grotesque thing, you see that the baby he was trying to save turns out to be, this monster as
Undead.
well on paper. And Zack Snyder looked at it and he was like, "Zombie baby, bet that's gonna be cool," And he
Yeah,
just
yeah. That's what it feels like, definitely. Like, because if you take
Zombie baby bad.
'cause if you take that same thing and you put it in, like, if that's Rick Grimes, like, that's a way more, like, impactful scene because we've had time to build up. Yeah, it's heartbreaking because if you know anything about Rick Grimes and his situation with his kid, it's like it's even worse, like, that would be the outcome, the eventuality of it. We only kinda know that this guy maybe was the criminal or something at one point, and that's it. Like, he does nothing else of significance to me
he
to
kind of
make me
disappears from the movie for stretches
yeah, be
too.
interested
Yeah.
in his character at all, like, to where this happening to him is not tragic, it's just a weird ass scene, like, it's like, "Alright, yeah, I don't know." Like
Zombie baby bad.
It's
That's
like,
my
well, that
favorite.
was weird. Back to the movie. Like, but
That was
okay,
weird.
so what about Kenneth? Um
He's a
he
hard, he's a hard character to like. At first, you're like, I don't like this guy. Like, he's like, he doesn't care about anybody. He only wants to get, like, he wants to get to his brother, which I understand that. But it takes a long time, and I think it's actually again the relationship with Andy that we and here is an example of a fleshed out, like you see his emotional arc and you see him start to sort of not necessarily accept the situation, but like form emotional bonds to people other than the brother that's probably dead. Um, but I enjoy that he's a hard character to like. Like he's not like for me, Sarah Polly. Like immediately, I'm like I'm fucking with this bitch. With him, I'm like I don't really like him. He's mean to everyone. He's aggressive. He's competent. Like he's highly competent at what he does and useful. But I think that yeah, it's the relationship that he forms that really makes him like me care about him by the end of the movie.
I actually never really struggled to like his character, like, I actually kinda was always fucking with, like, yeah, like, I mean, because, in these situations, it's like it's funny, like, when you juxtapose it with the zombies, like, the zombies are better in numbers. Like, they're more dangerous the more of them there are, but the more of them you are people, the more difficult it makes to do, like, everything, I feel like. There's more people that you have to make a decision because it's, like, ruled by committee. Everybody has to agree with this now. And his idea is like, well, I need to get with my brother, the person that I know that, we're on the same page. I don't know any of you people. And now I have to sit here and play politics with all of y'all. And we're not even on the same page. Like, and it makes it more difficult because I got this one girl over here trying to go save a dog. This guy over here is trying to, keep the mall to himself. Like, everybody has their own like perspective of what they want to do. The larger the group becomes. So I never actually even have issues with his character because you kind of don't want to be alone, but you also like don't want to have too many people with you because then
Too
you
many
you do
variables.
yeah, it's too many variables, and you run the risk of what happens like with, Anna, where you become attached to this person now that you didn't know before today, and now there's more grief for you because you made like new relationships that you already lost your husband. Now you make a new relationship and you lose this person that seems like maybe you're not romantically involved with. It seems like a good person to have around, and it's just I don't know. Like I never struggled with like his decision to be like I don't want to be around any of y'all. I have no interest in joining this group of people. Like
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I feel like he's yeah, I think I lean more your way too, Miles. Like I don't think I ever disliked him. I see the harshness in his character, um, given the setting as an asset, and therefore, and maybe that's just like a thing, like uh, you know, people who would otherwise be jerks somehow are become the heroes in a world where the rules go out the window. But he definitely exemplifies that, and he has a nice arc. Like his arc of that journey of learning to care about these people is believable. One of the most believable things for some reason. I think it's partly partially his acting, partially like just the construction of the Andy kind of dynamic and all that that helps him get there. Um, and it's fascinating that the character he first connects with is the one that's far away.
Hmm.
Like the distant, like there's a distance metaphor in there, like of
Hmm.
he's a distant character, and his connection back to humanity is through speaking to someone at a distance where he doesn't have to actually have a conversation, where he can just put up a couple words and that's enough, and that's so fitting for him,
Yeah.
where he's like,
I didn't even
No,
think about that.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
dope.
because if
absolutely.
Andy had been in that mall, they probably wouldn't even connect it like that.
Yeah.
But like it's something about that specific way that I think helped him. um so we should pivot because we're getting on time. What's our rule for this episode or for this movie?
What do we say? What do we say? Stop believing in shit. Like the thing
Journey
that gets
says don't stop believing. We say
don't
you
believe in
should stop
shit.
believing.
You should stop. You should stop.
Just be pragmatic, practical. Yeah, just let go of like the shit from the world before.
Mhm,
Like
mhm.
when we're in crisis mode, and that's what gets Andre killed. Is it, I got to bring this baby into the world and give it everything, and I'm like, just live. Like just focus on not dying. And that's something we see absolutely in everything Ving Rhames does. Even when he knows Andy's gone, he's like, shit. Like his face when he's like, oh yeah, these fuckers bite, or these suckers bite hard or whatever, and he's like, ugh. But like he's not gonna try to go and be like, no, Andy might make it. There's no irrational sort of response. It's like, well, he's dead now. And I think that is just kind of almost like the general rule of zombie movies is like deal with reality.
Yeah, you just had I feel like that's like often the problem and is everybody kind of has a difficult time adjusting to like okay, the rules that we went off of before are no longer the rules. And we're living by this world's rules. And that's kind of like yeah, dude, like, they have a whole debate about the girl's father, like, "Well, he's bit. We know what's gonna happen, like, now, like, we have to, like, okay, yeah, before this would be inhumane, but, I mean, what are we talking about right now? Like, this guy's bit, and you know, you just do it. Like, you kind of like have to do it, like something. And I mean, they end up, you know, waiting for him to turn, which I guess is I don't know, like that's like the thing that was like always the theme that they tug and pull at in like Walking Dead, where it's the people still trying to hold on to humanity, and then the other people that have acclimated to the new world.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that have acclimated to the new world have a better, you know, they're better at surviving. And you know, the people that struggle to hold on to, you know, what was before is like, you that shit is dangerous, man. Like, like at this point, it's like, yo, there's zombies. Like, whatever rules there were before, once I see a zombie, ain't no more rules, man. Rules is out the window. Once I see a dead person walking
Reanimate.
around, rules is out the window, bro. Like we working off a whole new list that went out earlier. Like we all like got
You
Did you
didn't
get the
get the
memo?
memo? Yeah.
the memo, the new list.
I mean, that's facts. Like, and but it's challenging because could we really could we really make that mental turn in real life? Like, that's to me what's most fascinating about these movies is they're always like character studies of like each character they're making decisions. That's kind of how it was on in all the Night of the Living Dead movies, The Walking Dead, everything. There's always like characters who you're pushed to make a choice about, okay, are you about surviving or are you about trying to preserve this dying version of life? And I think it's fascinating because like you have the characters who are most accepting of the new normal are kind of prone to survive, but it's also sort of obviously we know with the knowing how it ends, like they were in a hopeful state, even thinking that that was some sort of salvation. And the most pragmatic move maybe wasn't like seeking out a promised land. Because again, reality strikes when they get there. And so like it's really, yeah, I mean, I think the be, be honest with yourself. That might be another way to to look at
Deal
that
with,
rule.
deal with reality
Um
for sure.
yeah, and it's really cool because like the when I think about like other, myself in real life, like if I'm put in that position where I think about there's this game that came out a few years ago that called Until Dawn, and it's a video game where it's like a interactive drama sort of game where you make choices and it changes the outcome of the story based on the choices, and you play as like 8 different teens who are in a cabin in the woods, and it's basically a horror video game, and you have to make all these choices. Well, there's one point in the game where one of these creatures scratches this girl who's part of their group, and you have to make the choice whether to shoot her in the head and kill her or not. And the scene is really well constructed. They actually got a lot of like Rami Malek's in the game. Like there's a bunch of like really good actors in it. So like the way they use motion capture, so they all look like them, and so the scene's actually really impactful because she's a character you don't like in the game, but then you play as her for a sequence, and you're kind of like, okay, I made it out, but you get scratched because you pushed the wrong button or whatever, and you're in this scenario where you have to shoot her in the head or don't. And my wife and I were playing it, and I was like, "No, we can't do that." So we don't do it. Well, in the next scene, there's characters who are like, "You gotta kill her," like they're very adamantly telling you should. And then at the end of the scene, you read the journal of this guy who's been out there, and you find out on the last page, like, oh, you will not turn if bitten or scratched. I was bitten, I never turned. Like, that's incorrect. And so like I was like, dang, what if we shot her? That would have. And so like I looked it up on YouTube. I was like, there are playthroughs where people did it, and it's horrific the way the scene
Yeah.
plays out. It looks terribly realistic when it happens. And it's like dark because then you discover like, ooh. And I think in real life, like in a scenario where you have zombies and creatures and stuff, like you might to think like, oh, I would obviously like I'm gonna shift my brain and whatever I gotta do. But in that very moment, there is that thing in your back of your head, like, am I making the right choice? And like,
No, for sure. I mean,
yeah,
that's why people like, and I think finally like the zombie apocalypse genre is sort of quieting down a bit, but like that's why it has been so huge for such a long time, is because it's that existential question. It's not even about zombie apocalypses. It's like this zombie apocalypses are about life. It's about like what do you have to do to survive? Like who are you willing to hurt if you think that it's going to mean like if it's going to be the difference of life and death for you. I don't know if you guys ever read The Road. Um the but like to me people are always like, "Oh, that book is so bleak and it's so depressing." And I'm like, "That movie is about life." Like it's about like you don't know what's going to happen. You have to take care of your child. Like you have to protect them. Um and you have to like there's the whole thing of carrying the fire, right? Like holding on to goodness despite all the horrible shit that's happening around you. And there's like the scene where the little boy is like, we would never kill the dog, right? Like there's a dog and they're like they're starving and they're like, should we, there's always the question of like we could kill this dog and eat it. And the boy's like, we would never do that, right? And the dad's like, no, we would never would. And that's what zombie movies are about. It's about it's just
surviving versus
it's what
living.
we're all doing,
Yeah,
just stripped down. And
yeah.
that's what Walking Dead's about. And I think that question of like, do we survive at the cost of losing humanity? Like, is it worth surviving if you have
Mhm.
if you turn into an animal or if you turn into
Yeah.
like a cannibal savage person? Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Self preservation. It's like you what are you willing to do? And the thing is like a lot of people will specifically like in our society, like if this is I would never go outside like if this was happening in our society because I mean we live with savages. Like they you can they'll just tear shit up if they team win the championship. Like it looked like zombie apocalypse, like, so if people the dead actually came back, like, yeah, I'm worried because the people that we got here is like, yeah, they'll definitely, like, kill
roving
off
bands
you.
of cannibal raiders, like,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
real,
you
that's gonna happen, like, that's just
yeah,
no
yeah.
doubt in my mind.
It'll definitely be dangerous. So it's like it is an interesting dynamic. Like it's like what do you because there's different and then there's like the mercy ones where it's like, well, this person is suffering, so we have to do something. And then there's the other ones where it's like, well, this person is trying to kill me, so shouldn't I kill them first? Like, and so it's like it's just a tough circumstance to be in general. Like, but I mean, for the sake of the movie, yeah,
You
yeah,
kill
you
'em.
need to yeah, you kill them,
You kill the shit
and you
out of
don't
'em.
yeah, you kill the shit out of all of them, and you make, like, good decisions, like when CJ kills the one dude, he's getting eaten, and he's like without hesitation, he's like, yeah, I gotta kill you." Like, and I mean, he tells him to kill him, but he's also like, he understands, like, I can't help him. His leg is messed up. He's getting eaten. There's nothing I could do for him. The humane thing for me to do is kill him, like, rather than have him just torn apart. And then later on, he does a weird thing, like, "All right, just go. I'll be right behind you." Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Right behind me doing what? Like, why
Oh,
don't you
wow.
just come
Just
now
bring
where we can, like,
fire.
yeah.
Come on, yeah.
And there's so
Just we
many
don't
that
have
like there's so many
yeah,
zombies that like even after he blows that whole thing up, like you just see more zombies come. You're just like, well,
yeah, like,
um,
I don't understand, like, what he was standing
uh,
behind for. He was even reckless for, like, that throwing that tank out there because it was, like, mad close to the bus still,
yeah.
like,
I thought
when it
he,
blew
the
up.
first time I saw the movie, I thought he died in that explosion because it was like was so big
Yeah,
and he was up there. I
yeah.
was like, did he make it back in, or is his legs about to drop down? So, but
Like, we shoulda, like, threw that, like, a little bit further away or
Another
let us get
great
away,
action
yeah.
set piece. I love that whole sequence, and I'm not even I can't deal with, like, when I'm watching and I love it, like, I love a good action movie, but, like, when there's too many cars and wheels and shit and, like, vehicles, my brain just tunes out, like, I stop being able to focus on what's happening. That does not happen in this scene, and it's gruesome, it's, like, high stakes, it's intense, and it's not there's nothing excessive about it. Like you see all the things you need to see.
Except for
You
that
know,
chainsaw death.
That
That
girl
was
getting
kind of
stabbed with
that
a
was kind of
chainsaw was
excessive.
oh,
pretty excessive.
the worst.
That was weird, but so well, I think we did it. Yeah, like I mean, here's the thing. I love that we did that little side kind of we shifted into that conversation about what it means to live and survive and stuff because to me this movie is the perfect this is a Zack Snyder movie. Like he made 300. He made Batman throw a guy into the wall and leave a blood spot on it. Like this just for Zack Snyder, yeah, killing and being ruthless and brutal is the way to survive. And I think he communicates that through this movie. So I think our
He's
rule makes
having
perfect
fun.
sense.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so this is it, Dawn of the Dead. This was a lot of fun to talk about. I feel like there's so much
This was
here.
way more like introspective than I thought it was
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
be. Like,
I love this movie. I fucking love this
yeah,
The
movie.
zombie
Like,
genre is introspective
it's
in itself.
I
Yeah.
can't
yeah.
think of one that I like. I'm like, oh yeah, I like that zombie movie. But for me, this is like my favorite. And I've seen this movie so many times. It's one of those like comfort movies.
I guess when I think about it, like, there's not a ton of like zombie movies that I mean, I like 28 Days Later, but I mean that's loosely a
That's
zombie
barely a
movie.
zombie movie. Yeah.
What
It's
about
barely
Rabies?
as it's more of a like like infection type of thing. Like so in terms of like zombie movies, like the World War Z was again more infection stuff. And yeah, this is probably the best one. I can't think of one that maybe is better than this. That's like a zombie movie. Like I don't. I mean, I guess Night of the Living Dead, but I mean,
That's more of like
that's more of like
it's an
the
originator.
artistry of like
Yeah.
yeah. It's not necessarily the best.
This is the one I enjoy the most, and that I've
Yeah,
watched
it is.
the
It
most.
is easily because I can't even really think of another one that is like on par with it. Um,
There's some
I
interesting
don't know.
things to say about some of Romero's other ones. Notably Day of the Dead and Land of the Dead. But I don't know
I
if
like
I
Land
would
of
say
the Dead.
I don't know if I would say they were better than this. I put them on par with it in some ways, but like the what's interesting is Romero like his critique of this movie of Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead was interesting because he's like he said it was better than he thought it would be, and he said the first 20 minutes really he thought were really effective, which is what we talked
Mm,
about that opening set piece.
so
And he
good.
thought, but he didn't think he felt similar. I mean, obviously, it's no surprise he felt this way, but he felt that the running zombies were not as were not as scary or effective as
Mhm.
the shambling zombies. But that's a tomato thing. I'm
Hey,
probably
we
some
haven't talked
people.
about the music much, and I just to note that before we go, but like the Johnny Cash, when the man comes around and that opening sequence, all the clips, like all the media,
Yeah,
and so good. Those title opening titles are fantastic. Get Down with the Sickness,
Yeah,
the lounge version, and then the version that we get like the
yeah.
original
At the
version
end,
later. Perfect. Like just
yeah.
it's perfect and so good. Like such perfect notes for those scenes.
he has
Um,
Zack Snyder has music that he just loves to dip into.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I always like that, like when the husband is like running out the house after and she's in the car and you hear like just this 808 like cymbal come out of the I don't know why I like that. I just always like that.
yeah.
Like, it's just perfect. But yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's good
Yeah, the
stuff.
music I didn't even talk about the music is like pretty solid. Like
It fits the movie really well.
got the
Um,
Tom Savini cameo in there as
Tom
well.
Savini,
Sabini.
that's
Yep. Got to get him in there. That's the guru. Um,
right.
all right. Well, that's it for this episode. This is Survivor's Ed, How to Not Die First in a Horror Movie. If you enjoyed this show, please share, like if you're on YouTube, leave a comment. If you're listening to this on any of the podcast networks, whatever you can do to support, whether you can leave a review or rating, we super appreciate it. The best way to sort of connect with us is on our Instagram, 2BXM Podcast. We have a lot of good content on there. We're clipping out some things from these shows and sharing some really, I think, some good questions about movies. So feel free to reach out and engage with us on there. This is a weekly series that we're going to do until we get tired of doing. So So
Until one of us dies.
until one of us dies and becomes a zombie, and then we'll do the zombie version.
And the other two will have to kill that one.
Exactly. So
Or keep us chained in a mall store.
So again, this is Survivor's Ed. This is Survivor's Ed, and stay safe.